Hello and welcome to the Be Glad movement. My name's Pollyanna and I'm on a mission to bring you as many stories as possible of good coming out of bad and reasons to be glad. And this morning I'm joined by Carla-Jo. Say hello, Carla-Jo.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. I'm going to just get out of the way and let you tell your story.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I guess the story I'd like to share is one of how mindfulness and compassion practice completely transformed my life, and to share, I guess, a bit about how my life was before I discovered this new way of being, if you like. So I'd had a really lovely childhood. I was very loved by both my parents. And then they split up. They got divorced when I was 14,
Right.
Which was obviously quite upsetting for a teenager to go through. And then also when I was 14, I was in South Africa with my mum and my little brother. He was 12 at the time, and we were mugged at knifepoint on a train, and my mum literally had a knife to her throat like this, and I literally thought, you know, my mum's going to die in front of me. And it was obviously utterly terrifying. And I just remember at the time thinking I have to be strong to, I don't know, look after my brother. And the train was still moving, so we couldn't move or run or anything. We just had to sit, and everybody else was terrified. So they couldn't do anything either because they wanted to protect themselves. And luckily he got off at the next stop. But I never fully processed that incident, and as I reflect back now, I can begin to see how it affected my mental health, because I was having sort of weird flashbacky things, and was quite anxious around sort of new people or in different public situations because I hadn't processed that. But at the time I just kept going. And also when I was at school, well, I was dyslexic, but I didn't know that I was dyslexic until I was 22.
Right.
And that massively affected my sense of self and my sense of self-worth, because I absolutely couldn't understand why was I not able to process what other people were processing? Why was it taking me so much longer to do my work? And so I just had such low levels of self-confidence as well. And then I also started becoming aware that my dad, bless his heart, was struggling with his mental health in terms of anxiety and depression. And so all of that kind of was having quite a big impact on my mental health, but I didn't know anything about what good mental health was or how to manage anything like that. You know, at that age you're not taught, so you just kind of keep going and try to cope with whatever it is that's going on in your head.
Sure, yeah, totally, because neither was I at school. I'm so glad that there is a push for mental health awareness nowadays, because I've said this in a few videos, but about how we know that we need to keep our bodies healthy, but nobody teaches us how to keep our minds healthy. So yeah, no, I don't want to take over from your story, but yeah,
no, that's so true. And so, you know, when I was 19, I went to university, and I still didn't know I was dyslexic at this point. I sort of struggled on through, and I went to live with my dad because he lived in the same town, and I became more aware of my dad's mental health then as well, and I found it really, really upsetting. So I kind of went on a mission to try and help him, but at the detriment of my own well-being. And because my mental health was already a bit wobbly because of everything else that had happened, at 19 I just ended up having a breakdown, basically, because I just became totally overwhelmed and I didn't know what was going on in my mind or how to help myself. And so it just manifested as really bad anxiety and panic attacks. So I had to leave university and went back home to live with mum, and my anxiety got worse for a point as well, and to the point where I was struggling to leave the house about having a panic attack. I say this now, I can't believe that, you know, back then that I was that bad, but I just, after everything I'd experienced, it was kind of like complete overwhelm. And my mum, bless her heart, she's a counsellor and a yoga teacher, so she was very supportive and aware of what I was going through. So she got me some counselling, and eventually, a year later, I worked my way through all of that, and through the counselling, it really helped me to understand maybe why I'd had that breakdown. But I still didn't have an understanding of the workings of my mind, if you like.
Right.
So that it's helped me to a point to get me well enough to go back to university, and I got my degree. And it was at university where I found out I was dyslexic, and I was like, oh, so that's why I've been struggling and finding this so difficult. Because once I got to university, then I really couldn't keep on top. That's when I really saw that actually there's something not right here, because I just can't manage all of this on my own. So I got the diagnosis that I was dyslexic.
Right.
Which really, really helped, and I got some support with my work, and got my degree. And then I went into television because I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, so I got a job as a runner.
Cool.
And everything seemed to be sort of going, sort of flowing nicely. And then one day I got a phone call from my aunt, who was like a mother to me, a second mother, because she didn't have her own children, and so me and my brother were like her children, and she was also like my best friend.
Right.
And she rang me and told me that she had cancer, and I was just heartbroken. But I always remember her saying to me, don't worry, because I plan to live until an old lady. But sadly she didn't. She passed away a few months later, and that was kind of my first experience of losing somebody close to me. I'd lost my grandparents prior to her, but they lived in South Africa and Ireland, so I didn't have that close relationship. Right. So that was deeply upsetting. And then 3 months later, my dad died suddenly of heart failure. And so within the space of 3 months, I'd lost two of the closest people to me. So I was obviously devastated.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I just remember thinking, right, I've got a choice here. I can just go into the pits of despair, or I can just keep going. So I feel like I've always had sort of a strong sort of spirit and this thing, right, just keep going. But there's a keep going which is helpful, and a keep going which can actually be detrimental. And I see now that keep going was actually detrimental. So I literally moved into a new flat 5 days after Dad had died, and started a new job in my absolute ideal career in television, which was editing amazing documentaries.
Awesome.
And I just kept going and going and going, and then I started suffering from insomnia, and then I got made redundant a couple of years later from my dream job, and then I was like, stop. I need to stop and have a massive reflection on life, because that had all felt a lot to manage without having, this understanding of my mind. So I took a really big pause, and I had a deep reflection on life. And I was kind of questioning, why is life so hard? Why do we all go through all this stuff? I've watched, other people sharing, and everybody goes through like some level of traumatic experience in their life. So I guess I began questioning that, and how can we live a life where we can flourish and grow despite all of this stuff, and a way that we can manage to live a life with the inevitable stuff that comes up. And so then I went on to train as a shiatsu practitioner, which was obviously completely different. I never dreamt. I was always sure that I was going to be this documentary filmmaker, and that was that. But I kind of decided I wanted to do something which was going to help people live more rich, full, meaningful lives, and to help people, flourish. Because I always think about my dad as well. He never, for whatever reason, he never had that ability to flourish like that. So I kind of thought I wanted to, in his honour, if you like, and through everything that I had been through, help people in that way. So I trained in shiatsu, and it was amazing, and it allowed me actually to grieve a lot.
What is shiatsu for those who haven't come across it?
So it's a form of sort of therapeutic bodywork that originated in Japan, and it kind of allows you to go into a deeply relaxed space and just be, and to maybe acknowledge all that holding that may be going on for you. And by me being present and holding that person, and by that person then having their awareness and their being met in a non-judgmental and compassionate way, it can allow them to begin to shift their experiences. And it's all originally practiced within a framework of traditional Chinese medicine. So they use very similar ideas to that used in acupuncture, for example, like pressure point meridians, and then it's sort of expressed in that way I shared then. So it was amazing, this really grounding body work. I came into my body for the first time, because I'd just been so lost. I felt like I was like a ping pong ball, just like this experience being difficult and then being okay, and then another difficult experience, and whereas this helped me to ground and to express these emotions which maybe I didn't know how to express. But it wasn't then until 3 years, so that training was 3 years, and then my mum and her partner were training in mindfulness, and this was in 2008, and so it wasn't as prominent back then. And I was intrigued, and I started reading up on it, and I thought, I'd really like to do an 8-week mindfulness course. So I decided to do this course, and that for me was like the massive turning point. It was like, oh my God, I finally understood my mind.
Wow.
And I had this, I could see why I had been getting so caught up and upset, and why my mind was doing what it was, and that was completely normal.
Sure.
To have those responses when you're going through very difficult, challenging experiences, but I didn't have the tools then to manage it. So there was almost like a deep sense of relief, because I'd still been struggling, with the trauma really from that mugging in terms of my mental health, and having like flashbacky things, and I never told a soul because I thought it was just weird, and would I be thought of as being really weird and strange. But suddenly my mindfulness training allowed me to see that it was normal, and to learn to respond to my mind in a different way. And in doing that, it allowed me to begin to develop this sense of stability and inner calm. And it was so life transforming that was when I decided to train in it. Because I was like, I found the thing that I had been looking for, and I wanted everybody else to be able to experience this. So I trained for 2 years in that, and I also had quite a deep experience when I was doing that training. I'd realised that I had, when difficult things happen to you and you're like, oh, that's enough now, like I feel like I've had my fair share, please, why do things, just when things are going okay, then something else happens? And so I realised that I had almost been, like I said, that I've had all this experience now, I don't want any more, I just want to live a nice life now. And we were doing this practice, and I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was something around acknowledging human suffering.
Right.
And I just had this understanding that, life is deeply beautiful and rich, but it is can also be very challenging. And unfortunately, that's never going to change. Stuff will always happen to us, but what I can change is my response.
Right.
And that was massive. And actually I finished that seminar, and I just went and I spent the rest of the day crying in the meditation hall, because it was like this sense of release, like that I could just let go and flow with life, and know that I could do that in this way of being that would allow me to flourish and to cope. And it was quite an incredible moment. And the amazing thing about the mindfulness journey is, as well, as you're just constantly learning, there's no end. you just have more and more deeper insights around yourself and life. And so then, more recently life happened, and unfortunately I separated from my husband with a 13-month-old baby, and that was, a massive life challenge. But my mindfulness and compassion practice just held me, really held me through all of that. And, of course, there have been days where I felt, real fear and what's going to happen in the future, and deep, deep sadness. But I understand that that's a natural part of being human and a natural response to, when difficult things happen. And I can see what my mind is doing. And rather than it getting caught and ruminating, I can use these practices of deep compassion and love to just allow myself to feel steady and calm and acknowledge, the painful feelings, and allow them to transform naturally. And I feel like that experience really was, a chance for me to put this mindfulness and compassion training really to the test. And I just don't know what I'd do without having this practice anymore, because I think back then, when I had all those other experiences, I just didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know how to help myself. And now I have that. I understand what's happening, and it's life that's happening, and my brain is like this because of evolution, and it does this. And I know that I can use these practices to help myself really develop. I really feel like I've developed a sense of inner trust, which I didn't have before. I felt like I was being knocked around. Actually, I almost felt quite unsafe and unsettled in myself, because I didn't know why my mind was doing what it was doing, and it was feeding off like fight and flight, and that was creating emotion. It's creating this big loop, and I was like, unsteady. Whereas now, through this practice, and it is a practice, it's been 8 years now that I've been practicing nearly every day.
Sure.
But this has enabled me to create this incredible space of trust and courage within me, to know that whatever happens now, yes, it will be difficult and challenging, but I can use my mindful and compassion practice to guide me through it. And so from all this experience, that's why I just love sharing this with others now, because, as I said, I just want everyone to be able to cultivate this sense of inner well-being, so that, when stuff happens, they feel like they can move through it from a much more from a space of steadiness and inner trust. And also it really opens you up to the sheer beauty and mystery of life, and what are we all doing on this planet? None of us asked to be here or asked to be in the lives that we're in. We just wake up and we find ourselves here. So for me, this practice enables me to, navigate, like a more of a calm sailing boat through the tides and the sailing seas, and just and enjoy life and flourish, and that's what I'm just so passionate about sharing with others.
I love that. I love the 2 key words that you used there for me was the sort of trusting yourself and compassion, because we use the word kindness a lot more now, that it's important to be kind to ourselves and kind to other people, but somehow compassion seems like a much more powerful word for me, that to be compassionate towards yourself and other people, and to know that we're all trying to sail our little boats through that sea,
Absolutely. Compassion, is seeing that I suffer and you suffer, and having this deep want to end my suffering and everybody else's suffering, and really seeing the sense of common humanity between us all. We're all in this together. We all have these difficult life experiences, and how can I cultivate this inner love? Because we as human beings, we evolved to be connected with each other and to take care of each other, because if we didn't, we would be eaten by saber-toothed tigers or attacked by another tribe. So like connection with one another and ourselves is deeply built within us, and cultivating this, you know, stimulates the soothing system in the body and enables us to feel more calm and to respond to others. I think that's the other thing as well, is that mindfulness isn't just about me sitting and practicing and helping myself to, you know, feel better. You know, as I practice, then I respond to the world differently, and I see people differently, and I have more of a sense of compassion for others. So mindfulness is about, you know, community and us all growing together.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Yeah. Do you know what you're making me think of? In the whether any of you viewers are religious or not, in the Lord's Prayer, it says about and then thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And I grew up in a C of E family but went to a Catholic school, and for me it's like bringing what is heaven down onto earth by being kind to each other, that it's not some place in the sky, it's actually here on earth. If we look after each other and if we're kind and compassionate to each other, that's what it's all about. It's about living a good life here and now, and looking after each other here and now. And when you said earlier about love, my late grandmother-in-law, she had a great way of defining. She said it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, in every situation, if you ask yourself what would love do, then that is such a powerful way of dealing with situations, you know. Yeah, just wanna honour Grandma Sheila Walker there, because that was a really good one from her.
That's beautiful. And I think sometimes, you know, there's so much talk about mindfulness out there at the moment, and it's really important to remember that mindfulness isn't true mindfulness if it doesn't have that compassionate element to it. You know, it's like two sides of the same coin, mindfulness and compassion. They're just so deeply connected, and we all have within us an ability to be mindful and be compassionate. They're innate in all of our beings. It's just, you know, we need to awaken that, and then that's, you know, where people's mindfulness teachers' roles come in, I guess. And it's amazing because this is being taught a lot more in school now, and I'm so passionate about that, because if I think back to my, you know, when I was at school and going through all of that, and I didn't have a clue what was going on in my head or what a panic attack was and what was all of this. If children have that understanding, my goodness, that's so powerful to enable them to then grow up and have that as they face life's challenges.
Definitely, so important. It's so important. I've got a 2-year-old son, and it's one of the things that I'm always sort of worried about, making sure that he understands. I mean, he's only 2, but you know, how can I get this into his everyday life from a really early age? You know.
Definitely. Well, I've got a 2-year-old as well, and I'm exactly the same. Because you think, oh, you know, we don't know what that little being's life is going to hold, and if we can get them to understand that they can cultivate this mindful, compassionate way of being, it will serve them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and again, cultivate, such an important word. It is the practice, isn't it? It's the, you know, it doesn't, we can't wrap them up in cotton wool, and we can't protect them from every life scenario, right, but we can sort of give them that inner strength to hopefully be more resilient when life does throw something horrific at them. Hopefully not too.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody, you know, and I even I teach so many different age groups, so from, you know, younger people to older people, and everyone can, you know, benefit from this way of being, because, you know, this society is so much about doing and achieving that, or you know, fear. You know, we can be locked in those two systems, but actually we have this other incredible system within us that we can cultivate and grow to allow us to feel more steady through life.
Totally. Yeah, you're so right, because society is bombarding us all the time with these ideas, and they are just ideas of what success looks like and what happiness looks like and what you need. But actually, allowing yourself the time to practice mindfulness, to observe yourself, to know what you personally do and don't like. It's okay to lead a simple life. You don't have to have a fast car and the latest
No.
iPhone. You can get so much joy out of really simple things. But then we worry that society is going to look at us and say, "Oh, you should want more, or you should want what I
Absolutely.
want," and that's where we get stressed out. On a day-to-day basis. Obviously, seeing your mother held at knife point is ridiculously scary, and nobody thinks that that's going to happen. You just don't think that that's ever going to happen to you, do you? So your
No.
mind isn't programmed to deal with that kind of extreme event.
No.
So yeah, you need
And
to
then, and then not having the awareness of actually how that's then carrying through and are still affecting you in the way that you respond, and obviously, if you do go through a big trauma like that, then seeing like a trauma professional is really, really important. But for me, I really found as well that my mindfulness, again, this practice allowed me to know that these thoughts were a natural response from that, and in acknowledging that and acknowledging my feelings and knowing that they were okay and it was normal, allowed them to release, because there's not that resistance or discomfort of I mustn't feel this. And that's what often keeps it all going and makes it feel even more uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. Feeling like you aren't meant to feel that way makes you feel like that way even more.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a really big, part of mindfulness is acceptance in a way. And it's not like this sort of passive resignation. It's just acknowledging, this is what's happening in this moment, and knowing that if it's an emotion or a thought, that it's natural, and meeting that with awareness and love and kindness, and then it will transform, naturally, rather than this resistance that just, there's that saying, isn't there? What you resist persists.
Right. Yes.
And that really applies with our emotions and our thoughts as well. So within the mindfulness practice, you learn to hold that with care and compassion and love, and see it for what it is, and not be so attached to it, because of course we can really attach to our thoughts. But anyway, I'm blabbering on now. I could talk about this.
It's brilliant. I love it, and I know exactly what you mean, because I love these kind of conversations, and I could totally speak for the whole day about it, because it's so interesting. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. I love that mindfulness is helping you. I love that you're helping other people by teaching it. I can see you just light up when you're talking about it. Like, I found this thing and I want to tell everyone else about it. So I love that you are getting it out there and telling so many people about it. And you're based down Bath, Bristol way, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm based in Bath, but I do run mindfulness courses online as well, so I can work with anyone anywhere now, which is great.
That's fab, brilliant. Okay, well, yeah, send me the links at the end, and I'll share the links at the end of the video when I upload this. But thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And,
thank you for having me. And I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. So yeah, gratitude to you for what you're doing and enabling people to share, and obviously then helping lots of people. So.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind. I'll pay you later. If you like this video, do please hit the like and subscribe button, and you'll get notifications when new videos are uploaded. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. If you search @Be Glad Movement, you should be able to find us. Please do get in touch if you've got a story that you'd like to share. It really doesn't matter if it's similar to somebody else's, because I totally believe your story in your voice has the ability to help someone in their time of need. So please do get in touch, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another episode. Many thanks.